Hello everyone. Got a bit of a red face. I think it's where the sun is in comparison to my direction of travel, but we'll have to put up with that, I suppose. I have to try what that Paz does and walk around in the middle of the night where it's dark and there's no people around. Won't get disturbed and might look a bit better. It's weird, isn't it? I'll turn around that way, it's better. We'll just have to put up with it. I look like Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, don't I? Anyway, enough of that. You know, we are influenced by everything we see, everything we hear, and everything we believe to be the truth. That's the way of things, isn't it? And we see it on the telly, we read it in the paper, we look at stuff on social media. There's all sorts of places where we garner our information from. And the world today is a lot smaller than it ever was before in terms of access to that information, communication with each other, and how we go about our daily lives. You know, technology like emails, websites, real-time news, real-time live streaming, you name it, it's there. We become influenced. You still have in this country the mainstream media, the BBCs, the ITVs, the Channel 4s of this world, who still want to believe that they've still got that iron grip on the whole affair. And the problem is they're losing it, and they have been for an amount of time. And more people are starting to wake up to this fact and realise what's really going on. And I think the mainstream media are starting to wake up to this fact and realise what's really going on. One culprit in particular is the BBC. You know what I think of the BBC, and a lot of other people do. They should be demolished like some old useless building that needs replacing with something else. And that's been quite apparent for a great number of years. There's been a great deal of bias there, many accusations of bias, yet they carry on. You look at Ofcom, what happened with GB News, where they reported them for having, well, effectively politicians as news presenters, newsreaders. I'm not sure I'm happy with that, but the point is GB News got pulled up for it and everybody else didn't. Like it or not, there's still loads and loads and loads of people in this country that will take the BBC at its word. They will believe what the BBC wants them to believe. And, you know, they will say black is blue, blue is pink. Because the BBC, the national broadcaster, said it, has to be true. Well, one thing I've noticed looking at the BBC over the course of time is whenever they report something, always look at least 2 or 3 other different places, even if it's the Daily Mail, you know, just an example, and just compare how they're reporting it, what they're saying, and the bias in which they are going, in which they are leaning towards, and that'll tell you everything you want to know. Personally, I find the BBC very left-leaning in its views, and it's infested by, you know, that way of thinking. Now, I used to get told off by my mate for referring to them as lefties. You know, the lefties are at it again. He used to get quite offended by that. Probably still does, and he probably is if he's watching this video right now. Now, the problem is, the old left, I don't have a problem with, really. You know, it's for the working person and all that sort of thing, but the left of our politics has been hijacked by something else, and we could go off on a complete tangent there and lead into parts unknown. It could get me in a spot of bother. We wouldn't want that now, would we? Well, places like the BBC and other mainstream media outlets are infested with this sort of train of thought, and everybody else has got to believe that train of thought as well. And if you're not, then you're something else. Well, what happened recently, they were talking politics. And obviously we're coming up to a bit of a crucial time in our political lives. What do we do now? Unfortunately, all too predictably, I think we're going to end up with a Labour government. And that's a shame, because people still believe there's only a choice between blue and red. But how do they label other people, other governments? Well, or other political parties. You take Reform, for example. Now, I know for a fact that they're not bloody cars. I've got to find somewhere else to record. They keep interrupting me. I know for a fact that Reform are not necessarily right-leaning. There are a fair few of their policies which are left-leaning. Not current-day left-leaning. I mean old-school left-leaning. But what happens, of course, is they get labelled far-right. And the BBC labelled them far-right. Richard Tice was up in arms about this. He said, "How dare you? You can't label my party far-right. It certainly isn't. It's something else entirely." He even went as far as getting the lawyers involved. There's no point in getting Ofcom involved, because they just agree with them. And done videos on that before. And the BBC have been forced to back down and apologise. You can see here this tweet that was put up with a copy of the BBC's apology. We mistakenly called the Reform Party far right. In my opinion, some mistakes are genuine mistakes. That's all I'm saying on that. You can make your own mind up what you think. But in this case, who knows? But it's that influence again, isn't it? If you label something far right, and it's watched by millions of people who believe everything you say and everything you produce, then that organisation, that political party, in your view, will be far right. There's no two ways about that. And it takes an awful lot of effort and an awful lot of convincing to pull these people away from the idea that they're not necessarily being told the truth, or it's being hidden, or something else. Let me know what you think in the comments. Here's another video for you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Toodaloo.